to make sure that everyone is connected there. Right. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'm glad that you're able to make it here. Apologize for the last minute change, but it seems like it got out and we have a lot of families in attendance, so that's great. We're honored tonight, Claremont High School guidance staff, honored to partner with Azusa Pacific University staff to present some valuable information on the final financial aid process. So at this time, I want to turn it over to Sarah Hernandez from Azusa Pacific University to introduce her staff and present to you on the financial aid info.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. Thanks so much for taking some time to be with us and learn about some really important information as part of the college decision-making process. We're really thrilled to be with you. My name is Sarah Hernandez, and I am an admissions representative with Azusa Pacific University. So I get to work with all of you as Claremont High School students throughout the entire process. So before you even apply to APU, you and I are able to have conversations about what it looks like for you to make a decision about where you'd like to go to school. And then I get to continue communicating with you all throughout the application and admissions process. So I will put my information in the chat as well so that you have it and can continue to speak with me even after the event this evening. So I also know that this event is being recorded, so you all will have access to view this event past this evening as well. So again, really excited to be with you. I'm going to introduce some of my team who is able to help give this information to you all this evening. So Randall DeChavez is another one of our incredible admissions representatives. He is going to be behind the scenes just helping answer any questions that might come through the chat. And then I have 3 members of our financial aid team here with us as well. So we have Linda Kwan. She's waving her hand. Todd Ross. There he is. And Diana Lopez as well. Yes, we're so excited to be with you. So just to kind of give us a general rundown of what this evening will look like, we have an hour. So at 7, we'll try to wrap up to honor all of your time. But what we'll get to do is I will share a presentation that will kind of help walk us through the FAFSA application and what that looks like. That will take about 30 minutes or so. And then hoping to save the second half of our event for answering any questions that you all might have. So if you all will put your questions in the chat, then we will just kind of go through as many as we are able to this evening. And then again, if you have any questions that we're not able to address, then you can reach out to me. So let me put my information in the chat now. I will give you all my email address and then my phone number as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me past this evening. So again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you prefer to speak Spanish, then please put your question in the chat in Spanish as well. And then Diana will be able to answer those questions in Spanish. So that is what this evening will look like. Again, we're so thankful that you are here. So let me start sharing my screen with you all, and then we will get started. Okay. Awesome. I think we're loading here. Perfect. Okay, Mr. Anderson, I see you on my little tile, so give me a thumbs up if you're able to see this. Perfect. Okay, so we will get to talk through a little bit about financial aid this evening and what that looks like. So today, just a general run through of what to expect for this evening. We're going to kind of go through financial aid basics. So general information about financial aid, what it means that you might qualify for financial aid, how to apply for various forms of financial aid, one specifically being the FAFSA. You all also are more than welcome to log into your FAFSA if you've already created your FSA ID, and you're more than welcome to follow along with me because we'll kind of be going through steps in the FAFSA process. So again, if that's helpful for you, please follow along so that you can ask specific questions as well. We're going to talk through what happens after you complete your FAFSA. And then again, we'll spend a majority of our event answering any questions that you all might have. So to first kind of start us off, what does financial aid kind of mean, right? Financial aid generally is just any funds that is available to help you pay for college, right? So as you all are going through the college decision making, college search process, tuition, right, is a huge factor in the school that you might choose to attend. So financial aid at its bare bones is just the money that is utilized to help you pay for that college experience that you are looking for. There are various forms of financial aid that maybe you haven't been made aware of yet. So the different what we call buckets of financial aid look like this. And again, these come from the, maybe, let me see if you all are able to see this okay.
Yes, Sarah, can you put it in presentation mode? Right now, it's
Yeah.
just your screen.
Yeah,
So it's
give me
hard
one
to see.
second. Yes, let me make sure. Okay, let's try this. Oops. Sorry about that. All give me 1 second. Okay.
And participants, this is just a reminder, if you could please mute yourself during the presentation. We are hearing some background noise, so it's really helpful if you place yourself on mute while she's giving the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, I think we're loading here, but when I'm able to pull this up again, we'll make sure that we are in presenter mode here. Sorry, my internet is taking a bit. Okay. Okay, is that better or is that the same? Awesome. Okay, so the different buckets we call of financial aid come from different places. So the FAFSA application, which is what we're going to walk through, will help us determine if you qualify for financial aid from the federal government, from the state government, and from your institution. So at APU, as a private institution, we are able to award additional what's called need-based aid, which is again all based on the FAFSA application. And other universities are able to do that as well. So these are the three different forms of financial aid that is available to you as a student. All of these sources of financial aid will be determined by one application, and that is the FAFSA. That stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So the first word there is the key indicator, right? It is completely free to apply to the FAFSA. So we're going to make sure you have the exact link that you need in order to pull up the application, because if you just type it into Google and somebody tells you it costs $50 to apply for FAFSA, that is incorrect, right? We're going to make sure you have the exact link to apply to the FAFSA application. For the FAFSA, there are really important dates that we're going to need to be made aware of, right? So the FAFSA application opened on the 1st of this month. So literally now you can start applying for your FAFSA. And a lot of times what that means too is when you complete your FAFSA and you send it to the schools that you're interested in, which we'll talk all about, those universities are able to get your financial aid package to you earlier in the process. So with APU, once you submit your FAFSA, you send it to us and you submit your application. And if you've been admitted to APU, then we can start creating your financial aid package for you. And then I'm going to call you and tell you that your financial aid package is ready. And then we're going to set up an appointment to talk through all of those logistics. So on the 1st, the FAFSA was made available for the 2022 to 2023 academic school year. The FAFSA also takes the Cal Grant into consideration, right? So we talked about 3 sources, only need 1 application. So the Cal Grant is financial aid from the state of California, and the deadline for your eligibility to receive that aid is March 2nd. So although the general FAFSA application has a different deadline, I believe, and team correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's June or July that the general FAFSA application closes. But in order to be considered for aid from the state of California, you'll need to complete your FAFSA by March 2nd. So that'll be part of when you complete your FAFSA application. But for those of us who are high school counselors in the room as well, your high school counselors will complete what's called a GPA verification form in order to verify your GPA. That will be part of what makes you eligible for that Cal Grant. So again, your high school counselors know to do that. Students and parents in the room, if you just want to follow up with those people to make sure they've got that on their radar, then that's really all you need to do for that. For our portion of the FAFSA workshop, we are going to go through 3 steps. So creating your FSA ID, which is just creating your login information for the application. We're going to go through steps to complete the FAFSA application, and then what happens once you complete your FAFSA. And again, please feel free to follow along with us if you are able. If you've already created your FSA ID, I think you are encouraged to do so. Then this will be just a confirmation of that for you. But for those of us who have not created an FSA ID yet, we'll be able to go through that information. So again, that stands for Federal Student Aid Identification. And at its most basic form, that is just a username and password that you'll need to access your specific FAFSA information and application. A very, very important feature of that is students and parents have their own FSA IDs. So we'll see this later on, but there is a student information and a parent information section of the FAFSA application. So that's why it's really important that you as a student and parents in the room you create separate FSA IDs. We don't want students to be filling in the parent information with their FSA ID. We want parents to have their own FSA ID. So make sure you're not using someone else's identification number as you are completing the FAFSA application. So in order to create your FSA ID, you will go to this link here, which is fsaid.ed.gov. In order to create your username and password, you're going to provide your email address and your mobile phone number, and then you're going to enter some personal information. So you'll enter your name, your date of birth, and your social security number. If you don't have a social security number, then we're going to go through steps on how to complete that as well. And then you'll create challenge questions, which I believe is like a security question. Like if you need to have information resent to you, you answer a question to verify your identity, and then you'll verify your information as well. So that is in order to create your FSA ID. And now we're going to transition into steps to complete the FAFSA application. So there are two kind of common formats for how students and families complete their FAFSA. Those platforms are either online or on a mobile app that FAFSA has available to students as well. So on the online version, this is the main kind of platform that you'll see. So you will go to fafsa.gov, so FAFSA.gov, in order to start your application. So this online version will prompt you to either start an application if you are a new user or a new applicant, or if for whatever reason, like for example, we'll talk about this, but if when you first complete your FAFSA application, you include a few schools, then you submit it. And then if you want to add additional schools after you've submitted your FAFSA application, then you'll log in as a returning user. And again, that is with the FSA ID that you will create. So again, FAFSA.gov is the link you'll go to begin the FAFSA application. The mobile app version is My Student Aid app, and you can download that from your App Store or Google Play. And again, it'll be the same application, just on a bit of a different platform. So again, if you prefer to do that on a mobile app, then My Student Aid is the name of that app on your phone. Next, we're going to go through some steps in order to complete the FAFSA application. So again, you'll go to fafsa.gov and you'll click Start Here if you are creating and applying for the FAFSA for the very first time. So this will be kind of what the main page looks like. You'll click the Start Here button. When you are getting started, so you're logging in and starting to enter initial information for your application, you will need to select whether you are the student or whether you are the parent, which again is why it's important that you create separate FSA IDs. So if you are the student, you will click I am the student. If you are the parent, you will click I am a parent or guardian of a student completing their FAFSA application. And then you will enter your FSA ID depending on if you're the student or the parent. Then, and I think the FAFSA.gov site will prompt you to go here, but there will be a button that looks similar to this, and it'll be for the 2022 to 2023 FAFSA. So you'll click that button to start adding additional information. If FAFSA.gov doesn't prompt you, then studentaid.gov is that site that will prompt you to actually start your FAFSA application. And again, that'll be for the 2022 to 2023 academic school year. Next, you'll create what's called a save key, which will allow you to save your information and return to it later. So you will do that next. Then it will pull up some frequently asked questions that might be helpful for you to refer back to if, for whatever reason, you're having issues completing your application or you want to know how long it might take to complete your application. It will provide some FAQs for you. And when you're ready to jump in, you'll click next. The application also has these features here where there will be a blue question mark button to the side of whatever the question might be on the application. And that question icon is help and hints for what that specific field might be asking you. So for example, the option here was for the mailing address. So this just gives more context and more information on what that question is asking. So that will be available for every single field, every single question that the FAFSA will ask you. And you can always utilize this to get some clarity on what they might need from you. This next section is all about the student information portion of the FAFSA application. So student, you will input your name, your social security number, and your date of birth as the student. So that will be the first portion of your student information that you'll include. Next, you will confirm your gender, and then you will enter your telephone number and your driver's license number as well. Next, you are going to confirm your marital status as the student. So this is not your parents' marital status. This is your marital status as the student as of the day that you are completing the FAFSA application. So your marital status will be next. Then you will confirm your citizenship status. So this is where it might get a little bit more nitty-gritty. So under this section, you will confirm whether you are a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen. If you have questions about that, please ask. But those are the two options that will be available in this section here of confirming your citizenship status. An eligible non-citizen means that you are a permanent resident. So it's going to ask you next to include your ARN or your alien registration number. So you will provide that on that portion of the FAFSA application as well. If you are not a citizen nor an eligible non-citizen, then you will complete the DREAM Act application. So you will go to.
Please, Dad, don't bite me. You're breaking my heart.
I think you've unmuted yourself. So go ahead and mute yourself. Thank you so much. So you will go to dream.csac.ca.gov, and that is for students who are not a citizen nor an eligible non-citizen. This will determine if students are eligible for California aid and also for APU need-based aid as well. So that is an option for students. Going back to the FAFSA application, the selective service registration, we believe is still part of the FAFSA application. It has been in the past. And so this is for students who have marked male as their gender on the application. You can register for the selective service. Again, we believe electronically through the FAFSA application. And again, this is for male students. They are required to register with the selective service. And again, that will be part of how they're qualified for financial aid. So that'll be part of the student information section as well. Next, for our students, you're going to report your educational history. So your high school completion status. For all of you as Claremont High School students, that is where you'll include this information. Typically, this is for our transfer students. So if you are planning on maybe attending community college first and then transferring to APU, you would include the level of college courses that you might have had, or if you've done additional schooling at a program level, you would include that in your student education section. But for you all, most likely you will be including up to your high school completion status here in this section. Next, you will enter the high school where you have received or will receive your high school diploma. So for you all, you haven't graduated yet, right, from Claremont High School, but you will still include the name of the high school, and then the city and the state where that is located. Next, this is going to be the section where you give the FAFSA application permission to send all of this information to the colleges and universities that you are interested in. So every single college will have what's called a school code. That is just the number that, again, gives the FAFSA permission to give that university your FAFSA information so that we can create a financial aid package for you. So APU school code, and Randall, if you would actually put this in the chat for me, that would be super helpful. APU school code is 001117. So this portion of your FAFSA is where you would put school codes so that we will get your FAFSA application. If you don't know the school code of the college or university that you're interested in, you can search for the school. Also, another kind of important tip, if you were to just Google Azusa Pacific University FAFSA school code, it will pull it up for you. So you can always do some research to find the school codes of the universities you're interested in, but you will add those codes in this school information section of your application. You can add up to 10 schools at a time. So you'll click this little button that allows you to add more than one school. What will happen is if you have 10 schools that you're interested in receiving a financial aid package from, you'll put those 10 schools in. And then when I call you to say that your financial aid package is ready, you can remove APU from this list and input another school if you have more than 10 that you're interested in. So you can always log back into your FAFSA using your FSA ID to add more schools. You'll just need to remove them one by one once you hear that the university has created that financial aid package for you. So you can add as many schools as you would like, just 10 at a time. If you aren't sure what school you're going to attend, we encourage you not to limit yourself. So again, it's completely free to apply to the FAFSA. So it never hurts to inquire about different financial aid packages that you'll receive. So it truly costs you nothing to get these financial aid packages from different universities. And in addition to that, a university cannot create a financial aid package for you unless they have your FAFSA application or DREAM Act application on file. So if you don't send your FAFSA to APU, we won't be able to create that package for you. So it's really important that you allow us the permission to give you a resource ultimately that's going to be really helpful for the decision that you will make in terms of where you'd like to go to school. So don't limit yourself. Continue to add and re-add schools to your application so that you have as much information as you need to ultimately make the best decision for yourself. A lot of times, because these financial aid packages are created, most students won't pay the full tuition cost. Specifically at APU, even separate from the FAFSA, every single student who is admitted to APU receives an academic scholarship. So already off the bat at APU, if you're admitted, you are not paying the full cost of tuition. So the FAFSA application just helps us make sure you're receiving all of the aid that you qualify for. The next section of our FAFSA will be the dependency status, and this is a series of yes or no questions. These questions are, I think we're going forward. Sorry about that. A series of yes or no questions, and we have a whole slide, I think, available as well for who is classified as your parent. So we'll go through that in a little bit, and then if you have questions about that, please feel free to put those in the chat as well. This next section will be all parent information. So we just input all of our student information, and this is next going to be for our parents in the room. So you will log in using your own FSA ID as a parent and enter your marital status as of the date that you've completed the FAFSA application. You will then enter as the parent your social security number, your name, and your date of birth. If you do not have a social security number, you will just input all zeros in the format that it provides. So it's okay if you don't have a social security number. Again, you'll just input all zeros in the format that it prompts you to do so. Then you will enter your email address as the parent and the state of your legal residence. This portion here, again, provides a little bit more context for who is considered a parent and what that looks like for the different information that you will provide. So I think we have another slide as well that zooms in a little bit. But if your parents are married to each other, then you will report information for both parents on your FAFSA application. If your parents are not married, but they live together, you will report information for both parents, even if they were never married or if they are divorced or separated. So, not married, but live together, you'll still report both of their information. If they are not married and do not live together, the next question is if they live with one parent, if you as the student live with one parent more than the other parent over the past year. If that is the case, you will report the information of the parent that you live with most frequently over that past year. If you do not live with one over the other, then you will report the information for the parent who provided more financial support over the past year. So if this parent has been remarried, you will not need to report that step parent's information. If they have, you will report that step parent's information. So again, please feel free to save the links to the resources for the differentiators of who would be considered a parent. And again, if you have questions, please ask, and we're more than happy to help with that as well. Again, this is just a snippet from the slide that we just looked at, but for reporting purposes for the FAFSA, a parent is a legal, so a biological or adoptive parent or step parent, or a parent that the state of California has determined to be your legal parent. So that is the official definition that the FAFSA recognizes when reporting information on the FAFSA. Another question I think we get frequently is, if I live with my grandparents, but they haven't legally adopted me, are they considered my parent? And the answer is no. So if that person has not legally adopted you, they will not be considered your parent. So want to confirm that as well. This next section is regarding financial information of your family. So you will enter your information as the student and your parents' information as well. So if you are a student and you report taxes, you claim taxes, then you will enter your income information and then your parents will do the same. The income information that you will need to report is based on if you filed taxes, and this would be in this current year. So if you have reported taxes, whether this is for you or your parent, you can use this IRS retrieval tool called IRS Data Retrieval Tool, and that kind of automates from the IRS directly, and it autofills the FAFSA application. If you do not use that tool, then you'll just refer to your tax return that you received. I believe the FAFSA application will ask you if you'd like to use this retrieval tool, which again automatically connects to the IRS, and I think autofills your application. Team, correct me if I'm wrong on that. If you and or your parents did not file taxes, then you will, if you didn't earn any income from work, then you'll report $0. But if you did report income earned from work, then you will refer to your income records, even if you did not file taxes for that. So that is the information that you'll use to determine what financial income you report on your FAFSA. It'll be based on whether or not you filed taxes. Again, so yes, the application will ask if you'd like to use this retrieval tool to link to the IRS to autofill this portion of the FAFSA application. Again, if you did not file taxes, then you'll report the information from your tax forms if you did report taxes, and then if not, you'll report the income that you earned from your work. Again, this is for if you are a student or a parent. If you're a student and are working, you will need to report that income if you filed taxes for it. Again, always remember that you can click this little help and hints button as well to get some clarity on what that question might be asking and how you can report that information properly on the application. These are some of the common questions that we get based on the application, which we can help answer live if these are questions that you do have. Again, a lot of questions revolve around who identifies as the parent, if parents are divorced or separated, how you report that income. So again, if you have those questions, please ask them in the chat, and we're happy to go through those for you. The final section of the FAFSA will be to review, sign, and submit your FAFSA so that a financial aid package can be created for you. So you'll get to review your responses and make any corrections if that is needed. Again, you can always, that key that you'll create will allow you to save information and then log out and log back in if you're not able to fully complete your FAFSA in one setting. But then make sure you review and make any corrections if needed to that information. Then you as the student and the parent will provide signatures to finalize all the FAFSA information that you report. And then you'll submit your FAFSA application. And then each university that you send that to will be able to create a financial aid package for you. So once you submit your FAFSA, there will be various kind of steps in the process.
You filled out the FAFSA.
So
now what?
We'll, I think we'll skip this video for now just because I want to save some time to answer any questions. But after you complete your FAFSA, again, it'll go to every school that you select to receive that information. And each school will create a financial aid package for you. And then somebody like me, who's an admissions representative from that school, hopefully, right, will reach out to you to clarify that information. I am going to call you to tell you that that information is ready, and then we'll schedule an entire appointment where we get to go through that information together. So that is a little bit about what this video was explaining for us. Let me make sure we can get to our final slides here. Again, and this is just some final information, and then we'll answer questions. Part of why we as an admissions representative exist as well is to help answer any questions that you might have. And if I don't have the answer, then I'm going to ask my financial aid team to make sure we get you the information you need in order to complete your FAFSA application. So again, make sure you pay attention to the dates and deadlines of the applications. The FAFSA is already open. Please apply by March 2nd so you can determine if you qualify for the Cal Grant as well. You'll distinguish between student information and parent information. You'll report all your taxed income, and you'll make sure everything is as of the date that you completed the form. We want to make sure you're honest and accurate in reporting that information, because this will be utilized to determine what aid you qualify for, right? Which is important. And ultimately, there's no reason to rush through the application. I know we kind of rush through, right, all the information for how to fill it out, but please, please take your time, because this application is important for determining what aid you'll be able to qualify for. Again, we'll get to, I want to make sure we're able to answer any questions that you all might have. So we have kind of gone through all of the steps for completing the application, and as you start to receive notifications from the universities and colleges you've sent that information to, please reach out to us even during the process, so that again, we make sure you have all the information you need to make the best decision for you. And then finally, once you receive all of your financial aid packages, compare them, right? To make sure that you are understanding the information from each university and can ask any clarifying questions, ultimately, so that you know you're making the best decision and that you are receiving all of the aid that you've qualified for. So from here, I will stop sharing my screen with you all so that we can start answering any questions that we might have. So again, please feel free to send questions in the chat. And then if we aren't able to get to all of your questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and then I can continue asking questions even after this event. So let me just kind of go through our chat. Thank you all for letting me know that my PowerPoint was in presentation mode. That's what a lot of those original chats were for. Seeing that your Claremont High School transcripts, those will be uploaded for all of you in order to be qualified for the Cal Grant. So it seems like your counselors are ready to go to make sure that information is verified.
Yeah, so Sarah, GPA verifications, just so that everyone's clear, all parents and students, all GPA verifications are automatically sent in for all students at Claremont High School. So it's nothing that you have to follow up with, but we send those in for every single student at Claremont High School.
That is so helpful. I'm so glad that you all do that for your students. Okay, this PowerPoint that I utilized, I will make sure that you have that. I think I'll email it to Mr. Anderson, and then he can get that to you all if needed. So you will have access to the PowerPoint. The next question that I'm seeing here is if you have to create a new parent ID for each child. That is a great question. Linda, would you be able to give more information for that? Do parents need to create a new ID for each child that they have going to college?
Yes, so the parent can use the same FSA ID for all of their children. So there's no need for the parent to create a separate ID for each child.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Another questions were on some deadlines. So team, remind me what I thought it was June or July, but I know the general FAFSA application has a different deadline than the Cal Grant. So the deadline to be qualified for the Cal Grant is March 2nd, which again, remember, right? All three of those buckets of financial aid come from the FAFSA application. So as long as you submit your FAFSA by March 2nd, you'll be determined for qualification for the Cal Grant. But Diana, what is the general deadline for the FAFSA application? Is it June or July sometime? Do we know, team? And it might be different for each year. Linda or Todd, do you know the general deadline for the FAFSA
Yeah,
application?
I could help answer it. So basically, we definitely strongly encourage all students to apply by March 2nd. That's because for Cal Grant, they are actually very strict when
Yeah.
it comes to the deadline of March 2nd. There are no exceptions, not even during the pandemic. And so that's why we definitely encourage the March 2nd deadline. But even if a student misses that deadline, it just means that they would not be evaluated for the Cal Grant. So they could still apply for the FAFSA. The deadline would then, so the FAFSA application closes June 30th at the end of the school year, the following year. So if you're applying for the 2022-2023 school year, your FAFSA application will close June 30th of 2023. But each institution have different deadlines. So I could speak for APU since I'm an APU staff.
Yeah.
Here at APU, the deadline would be the last day of the enrollment of spring semester, which in this case, it would be May of 2022. That'll be like the last day. But there are other things to factor in. For example, when it comes to evaluating some of the federal grants, there are some grants that are first come, first serve for the students with a higher need. So that is why we always encourage every single student to apply as early as possible. Ideally, as soon as it opens October 1st, to then start working on the application.
Yeah. Thank you so much for providing some context on that. I'm not sure if we touched on this in the presentation, but to kind of just go off that a little bit, you will reapply for your FAFSA each year that you are going to school. So make sure that by October of that year, you're looking at the FAFSA that will be made available for your next academic school year, because you will need to reapply each year. So thank you so much, Linda, for providing some context on that. There's some questions here too about which taxes are utilized and what income information is utilized for the FAFSA application that will start for the 2022-2023 academic school year. So yeah, maybe if one of our financial aid team can explain that a little bit. Technically, I think it's called the prior year, right? Is what they look at for your taxes and your income. But would one of you be able to kind of explain that a little bit for our guests?
Yeah, we use the 2020 taxes for the 2022-2023 school year. So hopefully by now, most of the parents should have filed for 2020 taxes. But in the case that if the taxes for whatever reason are not filed, there is an option where the student can select that the parent will file for the 2020 taxes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know it's sometimes confusing because the FAFSA is looking at information from 2 years ago, right? So if, and this is something that we talked through a lot with students and parents this previous academic school year, because a lot of times the current information for the student and for the family was really different than 2 years ago due to the pandemic and a lot of kind of external factors. So if your current information no longer reflects your information from 2 years ago, then there is an appeal process that is available for those students and parents as well. So you'll still complete your FAFSA application based on, in this scenario, right, based on your 2020 taxes and income. And then once you've submitted your application, if your information currently no longer reflects 2020, then we are able to kind of walk you through an appeal process, which will happen at every university level. So it doesn't happen through the FAFSA, it happens through each university. So again, just kind of more context for that question. Somebody asked if there's another way to apply for financial aid after the March date. Again, the FAFSA application will still be open past that March date, but we want you to be able to apply before then so that you can qualify for as much aid as is available to you. Another question here, is it better to complete the FAFSA sooner for possible merit aid, or will it not make a difference as long as it is done by due date? That's a great question. I know somebody, there are a couple questions here regarding merit aid as well. So merit aid, merit scholarships are different than grants. So merit scholarships are based on things like your GPA, based on talent, based on those types of things. So at APU, merit scholarships, academic merit scholarships are based on your GPA, and those are not reliant on your FAFSA application. So any aid that comes from the FAFSA application is need-based aid, and that classifies as a grant. So a grant is any financial aid that is determined based on need, which is determined based on FAFSA. So again, we always want you to complete the FAFSA sooner rather than later so that we can create a financial aid package and get that to you sooner in your process so that you have all the information you need to make a decision, right? But your merit scholarships will not be determined based on your FAFSA application. So at APU, the academic scholarship you're awarded based on your GPA does not take your FAFSA into consideration. So I hope that makes sense. Financial aid team, do you have anything to add to that, or does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sarah, can I please add?
Yeah.
I would encourage our students, though, there are some universities that do require an earlier application deadline in order to receive merit aid. We did recently send a message to all of the students who are interested in applying to USC as they have an earlier date. So I just want to make note of that. Students need to be looking at each university individually to determine if they have an earlier deadline.
Thank you so much for adding that. Another kind of important question here. I did have a couple parents when I worked with students last year who this applied to. So maybe Todd, if you're able to provide some context to this. This question says, if the parent is currently attending school and has a FAFSA account for themselves, do we still have to create a new parent account? So maybe some context for a situation where a parent is in school.
My understanding is the same parent FSID can be used for this situation. They only need one.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Another question, can the application be changed if parent employment changes? So again, when you are, this is my understanding, and team, correct me if this is wrong, but you will report information as of the date that you are starting your FAFSA application. So if you've submitted your FAFSA application and your employment has changed since then, I believe that's when the appeal process would come in. Is that right, financial aid team?
Yeah, that's accurate. If your employment changes during this time right now when you're filling out the FAFSA and it's different than from 2020, then you need to do what's called a professional judgment, which would change the financial data on the FAFSA.
And my understanding too is that a lot of these resources can be found on the FAFSA.gov website. So I'll put that in the chat as well, along with my information again, so that you can continue to find these resources after this evening. I know we've just got a few more minutes here. So again, we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. And if we don't get through your question, please email it to me and we'll be able to help you from there. Your FAFSA, I have another question about if the FAFSA applies to community colleges as well. And yes, it does. So you'll put any college or university that you're interested in that school information section of your FAFSA. So it can follow you to whatever school you are interested in attending. For somebody was asking about GPA for academic scholarships. Go ahead and email that question to me because there's different brackets based on APU's academic scholarship range. So once you apply as a student and we look at your transcript, when we call you to tell you that you've been admitted, then we'll tell you the academic merit scholarship that you apply for. Randall added an important feature here that academic scholarships are available for every single student that is admitted, and APU is looking at a weighted 2.5 GPA for admission to the university. So another important factor. Thanks for adding that, Randall. For questions on, I have a question, and this might be a little bit more specific. So if one of our financial aid team members can touch on this, and this will be the final question that we answer today. If a student or a parent was notified that their social security number, the Social Security Administration match was completed, but it was unable to confirm personal information, does that person need to redo their personal information section of the FAFSA? So I don't know that I'm familiar with the Social Security Administration piece. Would one of you be able to maybe touch on that? Or is that referring to the Social Security number?
I would need more specifics on that, but based on what you're saying, I would recommend that the student would check to make sure that the date of birth and that the name matches what's on their social security card. The same would go for the parent information, but for the FAFSA purposes, we would still receive a valid FAFSA if at least one parent has the correct information, meaning that their social security number passed edits through the Social Security Administration. So we just need one parent to pass edits in order to have a valid FAFSA. So I would definitely check the date of birth because that usually is kind of one of the issues that we've run across with as to why it doesn't pass edits.
That's helpful. Thank you so much for adding that. Okay, we will wrap up our event for this evening. Want to make sure we honor all of your time. So I have just put all of my contact information in the chat. So if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, the website where you will begin your FAFSA application is fafsa.gov, and I have included that in the chat as well. So I know we touched on so much information, and we're super grateful to all of you that you've followed along with us. if that was so much information and you're on info overload and you want to process through that information with somebody, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are excited to see an application from you all soon. Again, you don't have to wait to communicate with me until you apply. You can start communicating with me now. So want to make sure you all know that you have access to me, and ultimately I want to make sure you have all the resources you need to make the decision that's best for you. So thank you all so much for spending some time with us this evening. Thank you so much to my APU team. Thank you so much to Claremont High School team. We're so grateful that we were able to partner with you this evening. So if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And again, I think this is being recorded, so you'll receive this again if you need further access. And I'll make sure Mr. Anderson has the PowerPoint so you all can continue to review this as you go through this process. So again, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all the staff members from APU. I just want to remind parents that are still logged on, it's important, we always stress it to students, to make sure you're checking each individual school's website. Contact the financial aid office. Make sure you know when deadlines, see if there's any additional information needed. Some schools might require a CSS profile. Some schools might want to see the FAFSA. So you want to make sure what information each school might need. And it's definitely okay to reach out to the financial aid office, because a lot of times you can find out about different scholarships and programs and opportunities that you might not have known unless you contact or looking on the website at each school's financial aid office with all the information that's there. But if you have any questions, again, definitely utilize Sarah's email and address and reach out to the personnel at APU. But again, I encourage you to reach out to each individual schools that you might be applying to as well, to get answers that might be school specific for that campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you all so much. We are super grateful to be with you this evening. If you need anything else, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.